Look at this. Right here in my palm, a little piece of iron, no bigger than the end of your thumb, cut and ground down from the hoop of a trader's barrel. Heavier than you'd think, darker too. You'd walk right past it in the dirt. And this little scrap of nothing killed more of them than the buffalo ever did. Now hear me, because that ought to stop you where you stand. The men who came out onto our plains, they lay awake at night, afraid of the buffalo, afraid of 3,000 pounds of animal that could trample a man down into the grass and not even know it did it. And they had reason to fear it, but it was not the buffalo that killed the most of them. It was a bent stick and a string of dried sinew drawn quiet in the hands of a man they laughed at. The thing they called primitive cut their men down faster than their fine rifles could answer back. They carried the gun that the whole world tells you had already won, and the old way killed them before they could load it twice. So you hold on to this, friend, and keep it in the back of your mind the whole way through. How does a bent stick and a string of sinew beat the gun that conquered a whole people? How does the old thing kill faster than the new one? I'll come to it. I will, but not yet. Let me tell you first what this bow was not. It was not a toy. It was not some poor man's musket, a thing a man carried only because he couldn't get his hands on a real gun. It was not luck. And it surely was not a relic to hang on a wall and tell stories about. It was a weapon made with more care and more knowing than the gun that came against it. And it did one thing that gun could never do. It killed again and again and again, and it never once stopped to be fed. Now let me tell you who's talking, so you know this isn't a thing I read somewhere. I'm an old man, a Lakota, and I came up with a bow in my hand. My grandfather took me out in the deep of winter after the new moon had come and gone, out to an ash tree he'd had his eye on, and the two of us cut the stave for my first bow together. Ash, not the wood you've heard about, that bois d'arc, that Osage orange the southern peoples prize so high, they'd trade a horse and a blanket for a single stave of it. That wood grew far south of us, down on the Red River, and it came to us only by trade, passed hand to hand for hundreds of miles. No, my country gave me ash and juniper and the chokecherry. A man builds with what his own land hands him. My grandfather taught me that before he taught me anything else. I remember the weight of the first kill that bow made, and I remember what he made me say over the animal afterwards, soft, with my hand on it. We did not take a life and laugh. The shape of the bow itself, the old one said, came down to us from the thin, curved sliver of that new moon. That's how close this thing was to us. It was not a tool we picked up. It was something we were given, and something we spent 1,000 years learning to make right. And the ones who died against it were the men who trusted a thing they bought in a store over a thing we'd spent those 1,000 years learning by hand. Before I go on, I'll say this just once and then let it lie. Everything I carry, all these old ways, I've gathered into one place. It's a book, and it's on my website. That's all I'll say on it. If you want it, it's there. If you don't, it's no matter to me at all. Stay right here, because what comes next doesn't cost you a dime. So here's where it gets good. The first thing, and the thing that won more close fights than any other, I could put 10 arrows in the air before his one ball was ever home. Now think on what that man had to do to fire his rifle once. He had to bite his cartridge open, pour his powder down the barrel, start the ball, draw his ramrod and ram it home. return the rod, set his cap or prime his pan, cock the hammer, raise the gun, aim, and fire. One shot. And in the time all that took him, a bowman standing beside me put 6 arrows into him. 8, 10. I'm not boasting to you. A doctor in the United States Army wrote it down himself, and I'll tell you his name before we're done. He wrote that a good bowman looses 6 arrows in a single minute. The gun speaks once, loud, and then it goes quiet and helpless in a man's hands while he feeds it again. The bow never stops talking. You see the riddle starting to turn now. Hold it. Here's the second thing, and it's the one almost nobody thinks about. I gave nothing away. The gun gives a man away every single time he uses it. A flash of fire, a great cloud of white smoke that hangs in the air and points to right where he's lying. A boom that turns every head for a half mile. I had none of that. No flash, no smoke, no thunder. I could take a man standing watch in the dark, and the man standing next to him would not know it had happened until it was his turn to feel it. The gun announces itself to the whole world. The bow whispers. A man cannot fight back at a thing he cannot find. Now here's the third, and this is where the craft of it lives. You're wondering how a bow no longer than your arm could drive an arrow clean through a buffalo and out the other side to stick in the dirt beyond. A short little bow made for shooting from the back of a running horse. Here's how. I backed it with sinew, the long cord that lies along a buffalo's back. I took it, dried it, pounded it soft into threads, and I glued those threads in layers right along the back of the bow. And here's the thing you have to understand. As that sinew dries, it shrinks. It pulls, it draws the whole bow into a curve before I've even laid a hand on it, and it holds it there like a man holding his breath, all that pull, just waiting. So when I draw it and let go, the wood and the sinew both snap forward together, and a bow the length of my arm hits like a thing twice its size. And it won't crack on a cold morning the way bare wood will, because the sinew holds it together, short in the hand. But it hit hard enough to bury an arrow to the feathers in a buffalo, and the finest bows sent it clean through. And it wasn't only the bow that was made with knowing. The arrow was its own piece of craft. And I'll tell you a thing about it most men never notice. Down the shaft of my arrows, I cut little grooves, running long and a touch crooked like a slow twist. Folks who don't know will tell you those are only for the blood to run, and they do let a struck animal bleed, that's true, but they did more than that. Those grooves kept the shaft from warping in the wet, and the slight twist set the arrow spinning in the air, so it flew straighter and truer, the same way a thrown stone flies straight when you give it a turn off your fingers. And every man marked his own arrows in his own way, his own grooves, his own band of color at the feathers. So when the hunt was over and a dozen buffalo lay in the grass with arrows standing up out of them, every man knew his own work, and no man could lie about which animal he'd brought down. The arrow told the truth of whose hand had sent it. A bullet can't do that. One bullet looks like every other and tells you nothing. The fourth thing is a hard thing, but you came to learn the truth of it, so I'll tell you plain. I tied my point on loose, on purpose. Now a bullet, it tears a hole straight through a man, and often enough it passes clean out the other side, and a strong man can sometimes mend from that and live. But my arrow was made so that when you grab the shaft to pull it out of you, and you would, it's the first thing a body does, the shaft came away in your hand, and it left the iron head buried deep inside you where no man's fingers and no man's knife could dig it back out. That same army doctor, he saw it with his own eyes again and again, and he wrote it down. An arrow wound to the lung was more dangerous than a gunshot wound. More dangerous every time. The gun makes a hole in a man. The bow leaves a death inside him that he carries until it takes him. And the fifth thing ties the whole of it together, and it answers something you may have wondered since I started. Everything that made me deadly to a man, I learned on the buffalo. Think on it. To sit a horse running flat out and put an arrow into the one spot behind the shoulder of an animal that's running for its life beside you. To do that, you have to become one thing with the horse and the bow both. And I did that 10,000 times from the time I was a boy, small enough to ride double. We learned to drop down along the side of a running horse, hung there by one heel over its back, and shoot from underneath its neck with the horse's own body between us and the enemy. So the man shooting back had nothing to aim at but a horse, while our arrows came out from under it. The southern peoples, the Comanche, the finest horsemen this land ever raised, could do it better than any of us, and I'll give them that honest. But all of us, every horse nation, knew that ride. So when it came to a man on foot, standing still, fumbling with his ramrod, that was the easiest shot I'd take all year. The same ride that fed my children is the ride that met the men who came to take their land. The hunt was the war. There was no difference in the skill. So now, let's turn that riddle over and look at the answer, because you've been carrying it this whole time. How did the bent stick beat the gun? Here it is. The frontiersman lost because his gun was a thing that ate. It spoke one time, and then it begged to be fed. Powder, ball, cap, and a long, slow breath of time that he did not have. And in that one breath while he fed it, the bow answered him 10 times over, silent, from the back of a moving horse, with a head on every arrow that stayed inside him. He brought a thing that has to pause to a fight against a thing that never ever stops. That's the whole of it. The gun shoots once and then begs to be fed. The bow never stops asking. 10 arrows for his one, no smoke to mark where I lay. And every single one of those arrows made by my own 2 hands out of what the land gave me for free. Now you might wonder why nobody ever told you this. Why every story you've ever heard says the gun simply won, clean and easy, like the old way never stood a chance. And I'll tell you, and it's the same quiet reason it always is. There's no money in the truth of it. That rifle cost a man money, and then it cost him money again and again for the rest of his life. The powder, the lead, the caps, every grain of it bought from the trader's post. And when the powder ran dry, that fine, expensive gun was a club, nothing more. My bow cost me my 2 hands and my patience and not 1 coin ever. Wood from my own country, sinew from the animal I ate, a point of stone or a sliver of iron off a barrel hoop somebody threw away. And that story you've been told, that the gun was just plain better and that was the end of it. You know who first said the gun that won the West? It wasn't a frontiersman, it wasn't a soldier. It was a man working for a gun company who wrote it as a slogan in an office in 1919, long after the wars were all over and done, when the only thing left to do with that rifle was sell it. That's not a conspiracy, friend. I don't believe in those. It's just the plain arithmetic of who's got something to sell you and who doesn't. But now I'm going to do the thing I always do, because I'd rather you trust me than be impressed by me. I'm not going to let a good story carry me past the truth. The gun did win in the end. It did. And you deserve to know the honest why of it, not the flattering version. Here it is. You can hand a boy a musket and make him useful with it in a week. A bow takes a whole life to master. I'd been shooting since before I can remember, and so had every man beside me. And you cannot teach a lifetime in a week. So they could make 100 soldiers faster than we could raise one warrior. And the trader's powder never ran out because it came from factories back east that never stopped, while every one of our arrows was made one at a time by hand slow. And the last reason is the cruelest one and the truest. They did not outshoot us. They killed the buffalo. There were 30 million of them on these plains, more than a man could count in 10 lifetimes. And inside my grandfather's own life, they brought it down to a few hundred head on purpose to starve us off the land, because a man cannot fight from an empty belly, and they knew it. And I'll give you the honest limit of the bow too, while I'm being straight with you. Its edge was real, but it was a close edge, fast and quiet and deadly but close. Past 100 paces, that rifle was the better tool, and I'll not stand here and pretend otherwise. Up close, in the brush, from a horse, the bow was death. Far off across open ground the gun was. That's the truth of it, both halves. But don't take the deadliness of the old way just from me, an old man with reasons to make his people sound grand. Take it from one of their own. In 1862, a doctor in the United States Army, a man named Bill, a surgeon, wrote it all down in a medical journal for his own people to read. He wrote that a skilled bowman looses 6 arrows in a single minute, and he wrote in his own hand that an arrow wound to the lung was more dangerous than a gunshot wound. A blue-coat Army surgeon who pulled both bullets and arrowheads out of dying men for a living set it down on paper that the old weapon was deadlier than the new one. I didn't say it. He did. So you see, this was never really about a bow. It never is with the old ways. It was about a made thing, beating a bought thing. It was about a man who trusts what his own 2 hands can build, standing against a man who has to keep paying his whole life long just for the right to defend himself. Here's the whole of it, small enough to carry out your door. 10 arrows for his every one shot. No smoke, no sound to mark where you are. A short bow backed with sinew that hits like a tall one and won't crack in the cold. A head tied loose that stays in the wound. An arrow grooved to fly straight and to tell whose hand had sent it. And a lifetime in the saddle that turned a hunter into a thing no rifleman ever wanted to meet up close. Every piece of it made from what the land gave for nothing. The man who trusted the thing he bought fell to the man who mastered the thing he made, and it took that bought man his whole life to learn he'd been sold the wrong story. So tell me down below, I want to hear it. What's the oldest skill your own people kept? The kind of thing that took years to learn and cost nothing to own, and that you can't buy in any store at any price. And who was it that taught it to you? A grandfather, a grandmother? Tell me. I read everyone, and before you go, keep this in your mind for the next time we sit down together. I'll show you how the old ones walked all day through snow up to the knee and never once let their feet go wet, nor numb, nor frostbit, and the thing they packed down inside their moccasins that not one modern boot has ever matched for any money. Until then, Touch what you make to the earth before you trust your life to it. Keep your head about you. We are all related, and I'd rather you trust me than be impressed by me.